Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of the classic arcade game Donkey Kong, the platforming juggernaut Super Mario Bros, the epic adventure series The Legend of Zelda, and the masterpiece that was Mole Mania, is also the mastermind behind the humble strategy game series Pikmin. Nintendo has a whole host of great IPs under its belt, some of which have tens or even hundreds of games, and some that have only a few. Pikmin falls in the latter category, which is understandable seeing as the series began its life on the GameCube, launching in 2001 around the same time as Super Smash Bros. Melee. And let's be honest, out of these two games, which did you pick? I know I had Melee. And although I love myself a bit of Smash, the Pikmin series has also etched itself a special place in my heart, and I want to take the time today to look at the game that started it all. Along with the GameCube original, I'll also be looking at the Wii version that was released in 2008 under the new Play Control banner. So first off, what is Pikmin? I mentioned that it was a strategy game, and in the strictest sense, yes it is, but it really doesn't play much like its contemporaries. Pikmin is more like an action puzzle game with some strategy elements baked in. You take on the role of Captain Olimar, a space explorer from the planet Hocotate, who was just taking a jolly cruise through outer space, as you do, when his spaceship is hit by a meteorite, sending him plummeting into an unknown planet. When he comes to, he discovers that 30 parts of the ship have fallen off and been scattered around the planet. His life support systems will only last so long, meaning that you only have 30 days to find all of the missing parts and repair the ship, which is aptly named the SS Dolphin, an obvious reference to the unofficial GameCube and Wii emulator that released a few years after Pikmin. Yep, no doubt. And there's your gameplay premise. The player only has 30 days of in-game time to find all 30 parts or they will fail their quest. How does our hero go about completing his quest and ensuring his own survival? Well, with the help of Pikmin, the titular creatures and home residents of this planet. The relationship between Captain Olimar and the Pikmin is rather strange. It's kind of like one of those "the first thing I see is my mother" situations. Upon plucking a Pikmin, it will devotedly follow every order that Olimar gives. You may think that Olimar's using them as slaves for his own bidding, and he kind of is, but in all honesty, the Pikmin are the bottom of the food chain on this planet. Without guidance, they just get eaten, simple as. It makes you wonder how they even survived this long. The game begins on the Impact site, a small area which serves as a quick tutorial. The game's basics are taught to you by the musings of Olimar himself, from the complexities of how to control Pikmin to the simplicities of controlling the camera. The first person narration shows that Olimar is learning this information along with the player, and it's kinda neat. It's a short and simple tutorial, teaching the player how to obtain Pikmin, how to use them to solve environmental puzzles, and how to recover your lost parts. After completing this, we move on to the Forest of Hope, and it's here where the gameplay cycle kicks in. Take down enemies, solve puzzles, collect parts, grow your Pikmin army, rinse and repeat. At the start it may seem a little too simple. There's a lot of waiting around for your Pikmin to bring items back to the start of the area, and you're often required to run back and forth in order to reacquire your troops. However, it doesn't take long at all for this routine to start becoming more dynamic. After hitting the maximum limit of 100 Pikmin in the field at a time, you can start divvying up the tasks. You can send a few Pikmin one way to knock down a wall, throw a few to collect pellets or retrieve parts, keep some with you to attack enemies, among other things. Remember, you've only got 30 days to collect all 30 parts, so time management is key, and it just feels good to know that you're using all of your minions as efficiently as possible. Each new level starts off in the same way. The player lands in a small central location with most of the surrounding area being blocked off. The solution to opening up the rest of the area is fairly simple, always involving a specific use of your different Pikmin. Now would be a good time to mention that there are 3 different types of Pikmin in the game: red, yellow and blue, each with their own different strong points and abilities. Red Pikmin are stronger against enemies and resistant to fire. Yellow Pikmin are lighter, allowing Olimar to throw them higher, and they can also pick up and use bomb rocks. And, unsurprisingly, blue Pikmin can survive underwater. Finding a new type of Pikmin is one of the most satisfying parts of the game. They serve as the game's main upgrades and open up new gameplay possibilities. It's kind of like that feeling you get in a Metroidvania game when you acquire a new item. Getting a new Pikmin type means that you can explore more of the level that they were found in, as well as new areas in past levels. Did you see a part that you couldn't access before? Well, now you can thanks to your newfound friends. However, while I do find it incredibly satisfying to find new types of Pikmin, these moments of satisfaction aren't really built up to in any meaningful way. For example, the yellow Pikmin are discovered right at the start of the Forest of Hope, the first full level after the tutorial. So within about 40 minutes or so, and before even discovering the potential of the red Pikmin, the game already gives you another toy to play with. That's 2/3 of your arsenal unlocked right at the start. It's a minor gripe I have with the original Pikmin, but a gripe nonetheless. That aside, I am thankful that the way you utilise these 3 different types actually requires some thought. While some areas simply require the player to blow up walls with yellow Pikmin or go underwater with blue Pikmin to require a part, other puzzles are much more elaborate, requiring the use of multiple types of Pikmin. Some tasks will benefit from using 100 yellow Pikmin, whereas other tasks are best tackled with a mix, requiring the player to balance their army and amass large numbers of all three types. So, how easy is it to direct your henchmen into doing exactly what you want? I'd say the controls in Pikmin are pretty good, but definitely not perfect. This is the main differentiator between the GameCube and Wii versions. Let's start with the GameCube. There are a couple different options for issuing commands, the main option of which is simply looking at something and pressing A, which will throw the Pikmin, causing it to either attack or pick up an object. Thanks to the helpful indicator on the ground, Pikmin will usually end up where you want them to. However, it doesn't indicate the arc of the throw, making it harder to grab something that's in the air. Using the C stick will allow you to command the group to move in the direction that you point in, which is helpful for getting all your Pikmin to attack something at once, but it makes them take on a sort of square or circle formation. There's no good way to move in a straight line, making crossing bridges frustrating, as it's inevitable that at least some Pikmin will fall to their doom. If a Pikmin misses a target or is finished with a job, they will just hang out in whatever spot they're in until they're called back to Olimar with a close range whistle. It's also possible to dismiss and divide Pikmin into different types with the X button, but if you do this near an object that can be interacted with, the Pikmin will just go off and do what they want, which can be a little frustrating. Still, it is possible to circumvent this by selectively choosing where you dismiss them. All of these actions can be done on the Wii version, with some of them being mapped to different buttons. What sets the Wii version apart and makes it a lot better control wise is how Pikmin can be thrown or how the whistle is used. All this is done with a Wii remote pointer, pressing A to throw Pikmin and B to use the whistle. Not only does this benefit accuracy, but it also means that Pikmin can be thrown farther and the whistle can basically be used across the whole screen, rather than solely in front of Olimar, making it much easier to regain stray Pikmin. In my opinion, these improvements alone make the Wii version the optimal way to play Pikmin, but there are also a few hidden bonuses that make this version play even better. One additional quality of life improvement that was plucked straight from Pikmin 2 and inserted into the Wii version of the first Pikmin was the ability to switch between types while you're holding them with a press of the B button. On top of this, Pikmin seem a little smarter in general on the Wii version. For example, they will immediately pick up pellets after destroying the pellet posies without having to be instructed to do so by the player. All in all, the control improvements implemented in the Wii version make the GameCube version feel a little sluggish and more cumbersome by comparison. Not to imply that the GameCube version is terrible by any stretch of the imagination, just the lesser of the two. One issue I had with the controls that was not fixed in the Wii version is that there is sometimes a delay between grabbing a Pikmin and throwing it, and sometimes they won't come out at all. Added to this, there seems to be a limit in how many Pikmin can be unleashed at once. You cannot throw Pikmin as fast as you can mash the A button, which I think is a shame. Being able to do this would have made taking out enemies a little more fun. Speaking of, Pikmin isn't just a game about solving puzzles and collecting items, there is a decent amount of combat. On a base level, enemies are defeated by throwing Pikmin at them. They will then latch on and smack their face against their foes until they are defeated. Like most things in the game, it's simple to grasp, but its complexity comes in its variety. No two enemies in Pikmin are the same. Bulborbs are easy to dispatch when dealt with from behind, Wollywogs will outright squash any Pikmin beneath them, and the Puffstall can actually turn Pikmin against Olimar. If dealt with incorrectly, any enemy encounter can lead to a devastating amount of dead Pikmin. This is especially true with boss encounters. Overall, boss fights are something that Pikmin handles exceptionally well. They often don't show up on the map, only revealing themselves when the player gets close. You have to quickly think about where you're going to strike a boss, which is fairly easy to figure out based on its design, but take too long and you could lose a whole lot of Pikmin very quickly. The emergencies of the bosses are startling on a first playthrough, thanks in no small part to their mechanics and their outward appearance. In fact, another area of praise is the design of the indigenous creatures as a whole. Many enemies resemble different things from our own world, such as bugs, birds, fungi, plants, amphibians, and the like, but with their own modified Pikmin flair. In terms of world design, I wouldn't give it the same high level of praise that I would give to the inhabitants, but it's still quite good. Most of the player's time will be spent in three main levels, the Forest of Hope, the Forest Navel, and the Distant Spring, each one being more difficult than the last and having their own unique sets of challenges. The Distant Spring in particular is very intimidating at first. So much so that when I was a kid I never finished the game because it just looked too hard. In reality, if you take it a step at a time, it's not that bad. There is an optional boss here, the Smoky Prog, that I still find pretty terrifying. If I had to pick a least favourite level, it's definitely the Forest Navel. Not to say it's bad, mind you, it has some interesting bosses and puzzles, but there are too many weaving paths back to the SS Dolphin. And the only way to alleviate this issue is to go back day by day to pick up more bomb rocks and blow up the walls. Also, the colour palette is pretty drab with its heavy use of brown, grey and dark blue. Actually, the visuals in general on Pikmin are a bit of a mixed bag. The dull colours of the environment do a good job of making the enemies, objects and characters pop, but they make the world itself look a little flat. The game seems to use a slight motion blur effect, which is more noticeable when the camera is up close. Personally, in Pikmin, I don't think it looks very good. For the GameCube version, I could only capture footage at 480i and 50Hz due to being from the UK and the game not supporting 60Hz. I'm sure the slower speed only served to make the motion blur even more noticeable. People in NTSC regions have the option of displaying the game in 480p, provided that you have the necessary cables. It's not going to change the art direction of course, but it certainly looks nicer. In PAL regions, the Wii version is the first time we could experience Pikmin at 480p and 60Hz through official means. Better yet, the Wii version also outputs a 16:9 aspect ratio, giving you a better view of the game world. Some elements of the HUD are stretched, but I'd still say it's an improvement overall. And like the visuals, the music in Pikmin is hit or miss. The instruments used in some of the songs aren't exactly the most elegant. After Olimar crashes onto the planet, his sense of dread and the urgency of the situation is quickly made apparent through his narration, yet the obnoxiousness of the song doesn't really reflect this. On the other hand, Pikmin has a couple outstanding and memorable tracks, including the excellent Forest of Hope. That is possibly the best track in the entire series. While the game's time limit attempts to evoke a sense of urgency, the chill nature of the track encourages the player to keep calm and take their time. Going back to that time limit, that's really the main thing that sets the first Pikmin game apart from the other games in the series. As a narrative device, I'd say it works really well. As each day passes, Olimar will write a diary entry, which will often show just how much despair our hero is faced with. He's met with the oncoming threat of death, and he's very clearly scared that he may never see his family again. It builds his character in a way rarely seen in Nintendo games. It's not all total hopelessness though, and there's some fun humour to be had with the descriptions of the parts that you collect, like the extraordinary bowl which Olimar was duped into buying by a crafty salesman. As a gameplay device, it doesn't feel like the time limit is there at all. Sure, there's only so much you can do in a given day, and it can get quite intense when the clock is ticking down and you have to hurriedly gather all your Pikmin. But meeting the 30-day time limit is a cakewalk. It's quite easy to collect at least 2 or 3 parts every day, and at that rate, it's hard to even come close to the deadline, making the time limit itself feel somewhat artificial. Not only is there little challenge in meeting the overall goal, but Pikmin is very easy from moment to moment. While it is easy to lose a lot of Pikmin in a short amount of time, it's even easier to obtain them and keep stocks of backup in the onion. As a result, I honestly didn't care if Pikmin died at all. If sending my squad on a suicide mission was quicker than strategically making it through an encounter with low casualties, I went for that suicide mission. This might be a harder choice for someone who feels a sense of guilt over some dead pixels, but not me. For those who want a harder challenge though, Pikmin offers 2 options. The first is an actual challenge mode, which sees the player collect as many Pikmin as possible in a single day. Although personally, I didn't find mindlessly collecting Pikmin with no other objective all that fun. The second option is high scores. The game keeps track of how many Pikmin you collected throughout your journey, as well as how quickly you collected all 30 parts. A first playthrough could take around 8 to 10 hours to beat, and I feel that this is just too long to warrant replaying for high scores. But if anyone out there fancies themselves a Pikmin pro, then be my guest. All in all, I don't think Pikmin ever needed to be difficult to be fun. I think where the team really succeeded was the core idea. Building up an army of cute little creatures, solving well-crafted puzzles, defeating other cute and sometimes hideous monsters, and collecting goodies is a good, relaxing time. If the idea of a time limit has put you off of trying Pikmin out, I'd say you don't have to worry about it. And if you did want to try this game out, I would definitely recommend the Wii version over the GameCube version, but either is a fine choice. Doing this video actually got me wondering. I'd never finished Pikmin with less than the required amount of parts and seen the bad ending. So this time I decided to try that with a Wii version, and I've got to say, it's one of the most messed up things I've ever seen. Seriously, if you're squeamish, look away now. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to keep up to date with me, you can check me out on Twitter at jamiethepayne, or you can catch me at twitch.tv/jamiethepayne, where I'm currently playing through games from my backlog and finishing every console Sonic game to 100%. But until next time, have fun playing video games.